Alan, we want to thank you for getting Michelle here on time this morning. I know she struggles with that going to Sunday school. We appreciate that. Now, for today's lesson, I decided we'll go back and pick up and do a lesson that I did 2 years ago that I felt like would be beneficial to all of us during this holiday season. Forgiveness. Do y'all remember that lesson 2 years ago, forgiveness? And I told Brother Dean that I was going to do a lesson and that Missy could apply to her. And he said, is it for her to not talk as much? I said, well, you can apply forgiveness into that lesson probably. But I did pick this lesson because during this time of the year, there are a lot of people that's mad at each other, family members. They don't want to get together, during Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that is the main reason that I decided to pick this lesson. So I'm going to start off with a question, Brother Gary. You know how I like to ask you questions. So just don't answer, just think about this. How many of you this morning have someone in your life that you're upset with because of the way they treated you? Someone that has betrayed you in some way or another. This betrayal could be something very small, like words they've used against you, or something as big as mental or physical abuse. Someone that you have so much anger that if you saw them in a store coming towards you, you would go the other way because you didn't want to see them. You didn't want to talk to them. Your resentment is so strong that you catch yourself wishing something bad would happen to them. You even lose sleep thinking about the situation. And you actually daydream of ways that you could get even with this person. So how many of you today have one person or many people like that in your life? 3/4 of the church. Well, hopefully this morning, I have a few too, actually. Hopefully this morning, all of us that's having this problem, we can learn a little bit about the importance of forgiveness. To learn about that peace, that healing, and the happiness that we all can share by forgiving someone. But generally speaking, Brother Ralph, forgiveness is a difficult thing to do, is it not? Initially, when somebody hurts us, we want to retaliate, we want to get even, and we want to be angry about it. We don't think that other person deserves forgiveness, first of all. For example, how many of you are prepared to forgive a backstabbing work colleague? There's a lot of people that they just want to get ahead. They'll do whatever it takes to get ahead. What about an unfaithful partner? What about a neglectful parent? And what about that flathead that's riding in the passing lane, running 45 miles an hour, that you in a hurry, you're going to be late for work? And then you pass him and he's talking on the phone, oblivious to what he's done wrong. Forgive that guy? It's hard to do, well, ain't it? But really, deep down inside of us, our general belief that forgiveness is a good thing, right? We know we need to do it. Something we've been taught to do even when we were little kids, forgive. But when we get in that actual situation where our heart's been stomped on and our emotions have been ripped to threads, we need a little extra encouragement to forgive somebody. Well, I'm going to give you 5 good reasons this morning why we should forgive. Number 1, forgiveness acknowledges that there was a wrong committed. Forgiveness acknowledges that there was a wrong committed. Now, forgiveness can definitely be challenging, especially if that person who hurt you won't admit it and they don't want to talk about it. They actually ignore the thought of forgiveness because they like to think of the situation that it didn't even happen. They say, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Well, actually, that's not true at all. It is a big deal. When you honestly get the idea of forgiveness in your head, you are acknowledging that a wrong has been done. Something that's bad enough to need forgiveness for. And you have to accept the fact that something happened against your wishes and you can't change it. And if you don't decide to try and forgive, you're likely to remain stuck in a cycle of anger and bitterness. You have to acknowledge that you've been hurt and you're still upset about it. But you have to try and look beyond your experience. Consider the situation from the other person's point of view. Ask yourself why he or she behaved the way she did. Perhaps you would have acted the same way if you'd have been in their situation. Number two, second reason we should forgive. Forgiveness changes you from being the victim to being the victor. Changes you from being the victim to being the victor. When someone does something hurtful to us, we are the victim. And a lot of times we believe there's nothing we can do about us being the victim. But that's not true. When we forgive, we are no longer powerless. We are no longer the one who the wrong has been done. Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 44. I got a lot of verses, so you don't need to be turning. Hopefully, Tony will have them up on the screen. 38, 39. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that you resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. How about that, Brother Bill? You slap me on the right cheek, and then me turn around and say, go ahead and slap me on the other one, I don't care. Good luck with that. But really what Jesus is saying, that a blow to the right cheek is the most grievous insult possible. When you think about that, if somebody hits you, it's a little different than if somebody slaps you, you know. Slapping you, it just burns you up, you know. But what Jesus wants to say is, you think you have insulted me by this action, but in order to show you that you have no power over me, I will let you slap me on the other cheek as well. Verses 40 through 44. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. You have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Jesus is telling us here that we need to do good to those who wrong us. Go that extra mile. Don't keep score, but just love them and forgive them. Instead of planning vengeance, that last verse says to pray for those who hurt you. Now, when you are bitter against somebody, you're constantly thinking about it, aren't you? You spend a lot of your precious and your valuable time and energy on being mad and holding that grudge. But as long as you're mad at that other person, they are in control of you. As long as you're mad, they are in control of you. You are still being victimized if you have not forgiven that other person for what they've done. So that is why it is so important to just let go of what somebody has done to you. Letting go is not for their sake. It's for your sake. Now, what if you haven't reached the point of forgiveness of someone, but yet you still have to be around them? I have a personal instance of that myself. Every Wednesday I go to a Rotary function, and I have an issue with somebody. I'm having a hard time forgiving them. So it creates a stressful and an awkward situation. And it makes you feel uncomfortable. But you have to do your best to keep an open mind and an open heart. You may find that the more you are around this person, it may help you forgive them. And I'm working on that, Brother Steve. So while nothing can undo the past, we can do something about the present and the future. Forgiving others makes a way for our own healing to begin. And there's evidence that people who can forgive are the ones who receive the most rewards. Study after study has shown that people who are forgiven tend to have not only less stress in their life, but they have better relationships. They have fewer health problems. They have less serious illnesses like depression, heart disease. Why? Because not forgiving or nursing a grudge raises your blood pressure, affects your immune system, makes you more depressed, and causes enormous physical stress to the whole body. The third reason we should forgive. Forgiveness makes perfect sense for everyone. Makes perfect sense for everyone. Every single one of us here today has needed forgiveness in the past. We need forgiveness now, and we're going to need forgiveness in the future. But the problem is with us humans, we only concentrate on the present. But if we look at the larger picture, we are not only the one who a wrong has been done to us, but we are also the one who has done wrong to others. Let's look at some scriptures where Jesus proves this point. Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 14. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. And above all these things put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness. God has no tolerance for a person who is quick to receive forgiveness from him, but then is unwilling to forgive others. How can we not forgive somebody for this little bitty thing they've done? Look how many times he forgives us. Numerous, numerous times. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 5 through 10. But if any have caused grief, he hath not grieved me, but in part that I may not overcharge you all. Sufficient is such a man is this punishment, which was inflicted of many. So that contrariwise ye ought rather to forgive him and comfort him, lest perhaps such a one should be swallowed up with overmuch sorrow. Therefore I beseech you that you would confirm your love toward him. For to this end also did I write, that I may know the proof of you, whether you be obedient in all things. To whom ye forgive anything, I forgive also. For if I forgave anything, to whom I forgave it, for your sakes forgave I it in the person of Christ. So we should forgive that man who has repented and been forgiven by God. Don't keep punishing him for his wrongdoing. His feeling of guilt is bad enough without us giving him more grief. We have to let it go. Luke chapter 6, verse 37. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. God is telling us here that it is our best interest to forgive. He's not talking about the other person, the best interest of them. We are the ones that God is trying to protect. We are the ones who wants to receive the most benefit from forgiveness, not the other person. The whole reason God has given us instructions, because he does not want anything to stand between us and him. If we don't forgive, it compromises our daily walk with him. Mark chapter 11, verse 24 through 26. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that you receive them, and ye shall have them. And when you stand praying, forgive, if ye have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses. We all struggle with forgiving some people for what they've done to us. But prayer is that answer. We need to pray. Fourth reason we should forgive. Forgiveness is the only road to freedom. Forgiveness is the only road to freedom. Forgiveness is risky. We've already said that. It's definitely a gamble. But it certainly beats that other option. It's to hold on to all that bitterness and all that anger, which makes us miserable and causes us to resent other people. Resentment is more than a flash of anger. Resentment hangs on, and it gnaws at you inside and makes you mean and nasty. Waste a lot of your time and a lot of your energy. How many of you this morning can think of someone whose life has been ruined simply because they continue to hold on to a wrong done to them? They're miserable, negative people. I'm sure we all know somebody that's that way. Now, what if the person I'm forgiving don't change? Well, getting another person to change his or her actions, their behavior, or even their words, that ain't the point of forgiveness. Most people are not going to change because they're too prideful and they're stubborn. So just think of forgiveness, how it can change your life, bringing you peace and happiness. So forgiveness is risky, yes it is, but it is the road to freedom. The other road's going to lead you to self-destruction. The last one, number 5. This is it, Brother Gary. Forgiveness is not Jesus' suggestion, it is his command. He commands us to forgive. Matthew chapter 18, verse 21 and 22. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. 490 times. That ain't the point of this. He's saying we shouldn't keep track of how many times we forgive somebody. We should always forgive those who truly repent, no matter how many times they ask us. Luke chapter 17, verses 3 and 4. Take heed to yourself. If thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him. And if he repent, forgive him. And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him. Rebuke him means to confront him. Go to the person, discuss it with them. 9 times out of 10, they're going to apologize. Because most of the time, they didn't mean to hurt you in the first place. Just be careful with the attitude you had when you confront them. Your attitude can make a huge difference in the outcome of that conversation. Don't judge them. We've discussed how Jesus teaches us about forgiveness. But let's look at some examples where he demonstrated his forgiveness to others. Matthew chapter 9. This is Brother Stoops in the Easter drama. Man sick with a palsy, basically paralyzed, lying on the bed. Jesus said, Son, be of good cheer, thy sins be forgiven. Arise and walk. John chapter 8, woman caught in adultery. I've helped throw Kim and Laura down for 5 years in that Easter drama, and I love every minute of it. But remember what Jesus said. Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. John chapter 18 and chapter 21. Peter, for denying he knew Jesus 3 times, Jesus forgave him. Luke chapter 7. Beth in the Easter drama. Woman who anointed Jesus' feet with oil. Jesus said, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she showed her love. Luke chapter 23, the thief on the cross. Remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. Jesus said, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. And the best one is also in Luke chapter 23, during the crucifixion, when Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Numerous examples of Jesus' willingness to forgive, and they all should be an encouragement to us to forgive others. Now, when you talk about forgiveness, me and James McCrae just talked about this a few minutes ago, you have to mention that phrase, forgiving but not forgetting. You hear this a lot. God, I'm bad at holding grudges, Brother Ralph. I really am. But you say to yourself, I will forgive this person for what they've done, but I will never forget it. That's holding a grudge, ain't it? You can forgive other people and still not trust them, right? But if you do forgive them, it's likely you're going to start focusing less on what they did to you. So forgetting is likely to happen as you forgive. Forgetting is likely to happen as you forgive. Only you can decide on whether you trust that person again after they've wronged you. And you can set the boundaries and new expectations for those people. So how do you know you've forgiven someone? How do you know that? Well, if you're still spending time with them, it's likely you'll feel that sense of peace while you're around them. And that sense of peace will feel good. And your attitude and your intentions toward that person may change. You may even catch yourself saying something nice about them, Brother Stoops. And once you feel that peace and once you start saying something nice to them, the next person that comes along that you have to forgive, it may be a little easier. So the old saying, practice makes perfect, that's true. The more we forgive, the better we will get at forgiving. What if you need forgiveness yourself? I have a hard time forgiving myself for some of the stupid stuff I do. First step is to honestly acknowledge the wrongs you've done and how these wrongs have affected others. But we can't beat ourselves up over it because we're human. We all make mistakes. But if you're truly sorry for something that you've said or that you've done, consider admitting it to those you've harmed. Speak of your sorrow and your regret and specifically ask for forgiveness. Don't make up excuses. But you can't force somebody to forgive you. Others, they have a certain time frame that they got to go through before they forgive you. So just try to remember that we need to forgive ourselves just like we forgive others. We deserve second chances, just like everybody else. We don't need to be thinking that we got to be perfect. We need to continuously try to get better, but we can't beat ourselves up over it. So in summary, this morning we've talked about the importance of forgiveness and how God forgives us, so we should forgive others. But the main thing, and I hope you got out of this, is the first step in forgiveness is choosing to forgive. It is our choice. And we all know that forgiveness is not going to change the past. Whatever happened has happened and it's done. But the feelings about the past can change. Once we surrender our pride and fully forgive from the heart, God began working in our lives by healing us of our pain and resentment. So just remember, when our brothers and sisters wrong us, let's just forgive and try to forget. It's an important part of our Christian growth. Well, I thank you for your attention this morning. Please remember this lesson during the upcoming holiday season. It's very important. Bury that hatchet, Brother Steve. Bury that hatchet. So, I'm supposed to teach next week, but I got some things. My son's coming in.